Hi, welcome to Tourism Tribe's Untangling Tourism Tech podcast. Hi, Fab.
Hey Liz, how are you going?
Well, thank you. Well, we're at episode 14. Welcome to our listeners. And we have prepared for our listeners today a topic that don't turn off the sound now when I say this. We're talking about a topic that can be a bit dry, but it's really important, which is cybersecurity. But this is cybersecurity on AI steroids in terms of what we are seeing with our clients in terms of the impacts of improved technology tools for cyber scammers and what that means for your business. And unfortunately, we've got some real stories to share, but Fab, fortunately, you're able to shed some light on the approaches that people need to be taking. So,
And don't think, for our listeners, I want to say, don't think that it might not happen to you, because it's actually happened to Liz and I both. And we live and breathe tech every day. And in my case, especially, it took me about 2 months to realize what had happened. So listening to this episode will really arm you with that critical thinking of when it strikes next time. Hopefully you'll have that 1 second of remembering this podcast and go, could it be? Do I have to be extra cautious here?
Thanks, Fab. So we're going to have a chat, first of all, about that doorway to your business of your email accounts and the risks there. And we're also going to have a chat about just improved technologies, things like voice, and what that means to the risk of your business. So let's kick off with the email story, Fab, because this one is close to our hearts on behalf of a client of ours. Would you like to lead in with that in terms of their experience?
Yeah, well, it's happened to actually quite a few clients of mine. I wrote a LinkedIn post about it, episode 3A, if anyone's interested in reading the story. But basically, email and spoofing. So what does it mean? It means that you can actually be sending email to people in your contacts list or to anyone, but it might not actually be you. However, when the person receives the email, they see it will be from Fabienne@tourismtribe.com. So unless you put things in place in your domain name, this could happen. And it's got some really bad implications, because if you know someone well, and this is how scammers use AI, I guess, Liz, to define the know someone well, the person who received your email is going to believe you. So have you got a story to share, Liz, here?
I have, and I think it's a perfect example of how AI is making it easier and faster for scammers, and they can bring a lot more automation, therefore speed, into finding the vulnerable businesses. And the example is where a client is running an organisation and people with members within that organisation. So an example, if you think of a similar example in our industry, it could be a regional tourism organisation where members are receiving emails, and these are people that have a close relationship with the CEO. So it could be a member of their committee or board, like the treasurer, for example, receiving a spoofed email from the CEO saying, can you please authorise that payment? We need to do it urgently to this company. And the email was almost perfect. The tone of voice, the references to this person, knowing their first name, knowing what their role was in the organisation, because all of this is available online on the website, because we want to be transparent and talk about who's in our organisation. Now, that fortunately was caught because of a manual practice of checking and having 2 signatories on the bank account for any payments and one checking with the other because it was an extraordinary payment. That same organisation, before they took your advice, Fabi, in terms of what they needed to do, had 2 other occurrences. The second one went to a member, an email asking them to make a payment for the CEO, a very trusted relationship between the two. They were working on a project together. They roughly had the project name correct because, once again, this had been in the public domain, this information. And unfortunately, that person did make that payment, and then I'm trying to get the money back through their bank. The third one was caught, and that was going to a member. It was a weird request because that member wouldn't normally be involved in financial transactions, and she flagged it. So this, to me, in the space of about a fortnight period, just demonstrated how smart the relationship connection has become, where that kind of spoofing exercise required some manual phishing maybe before. Now they can just create a story, put it over email, spoof the emails, and it could be even to a staff member that could happen. So then you went through the exercise, Fab, of advising on this particular one, which appears to have arrested the problem. And so could you just share with our listeners what they need to look out for in terms of...
Okay, so I guess the first thing is to actually have a proper email platform. So if you use email attached to your host, you know, the old school way of doing email, so attached to your host, you might create 1 or 2 inbox. That is not going to send the same alarm bells in your inbox than if you actually had a system like Google Workspace or Office 365. Liz, you would know when we look at our emails, actually we're very unlikely, it's going to be very unlikely that we see an email that is spoofed from a client, because it would have gone straight to spam, because Google would have already read that there was a mismatch between things. So that's the first thing, is have a proper email platform. An email attached to your host is not the way to go. So that's going to already save you possibly a lot of issues. Not even just, you know, not looking at your spam daily. I have clients that still tell us, oh, I don't mind, I just delete the spam. I'm like, oh my goodness, maybe you are, but imagine your staff, they might not know. So set up a proper system to do email in 2025. Then you need to actually access your domain name and set up some records. So I'm already probably speaking Chinese here to many of you, and this is where it gets quite technical, because most of people we often talk to don't actually have a handy access to the domain admin platform. So even just accessing that information is very important. And in the show notes, I'm going to link you to a blog post that I have written a few weeks ago to tell you what admin access you need and how to fight for it with your tech guy or girl that may not want to give it to you, right? So basically, if someone's getting emails from you that pretend in the from field that it is from you, but it's not you, it means that there's a problem inside your domain name, that you are missing some records or some pieces of information that you need to go and add. And basically, there's about 3 records you might have heard: SPF record, DKIM, and DMARC. And it will likely, the culprit will likely be that you're missing one of those. So in the show notes, we're going to put a link for you to how to test if you're missing these records. Of course, you can go to your domain name or host or web developer, but you should be checking this and remedying that problem right away, because it sounds complex, but there is so many steps that are written everywhere on the internet about this, because it is such a common problem that it's not easy. It's not hard to fix. The hard bit is just making sure you've got the right login and find the right buttons in your domain name. But don't expect that to be done for you. We're talking about this earlier, Liz, that lots of people think, oh, I've got a domain name, I've got someone looking after this, you know, where you pay your bill $40 a year for your domain name. No, that's just like, I guess, paying for your rates or the title of your land. The council's not going to put cameras on your land and build you a fence. You have to instigate that. So having a domain name doesn't mean that these protections are in place.
Yeah, I've found generally that people aren't aware of this safeguard. So I do absolutely commend everyone to run that test, go to the show notes and get that link to run the test on their own domain. Or let us know, come and ask us and we can do a quick consult for you to be able to do that for you and point you in the right direction, because it is quite a technical area, and if you are a small business without good IT support, you can feel quite vulnerable. What about some other ways in which scammers are getting smarter or using AI technology, Fab, or could use AI technology? Let's talk about voice, because that is one of the biggest changes. Is people would be starting to see that they can have their voice built into an avatar, for example. So what are you imagining are going to be the vulnerabilities and the opportunities, but largely the vulnerabilities?
Do you remember this text message going around? Was it 6 months ago that people were receiving, saying from their daughter or their son, saying, "Oh,
yes.
Mum, I'm stuck," and that was a text message.
$3,000, I'm desperate. Yes.
Yeah. So and that was just a text message. But for AI, text message, what you have to realize is text message, email, voice is just a different medium, but it's the same. It's the same thing, whether they send it to you via WhatsApp, via chat that we're used to chatting now, or via voice, the mechanisms behind it are the same. It's just the end point of how they make that last connection between the scam and you is text or voice or chat or email, right? So we're kind of familiar with email and text messages, but we're not really superbly familiar with scammers calling you and potentially pretending they are your daughter, or we're quite familiar with pretending they're your bank or the tax office. But let's think about it, Liz. You and I have a podcast. We have tons of videos with our voice recorded online. You might think you don't have anything with your voice recorded, but think about your answering machine, right? That might be your voice. How easy would it be for AI to actually spoof your voice and call someone saying, "Hey, I'm Fab, I'm Liz, I'm the president of my local tourism organization. Have you made that payment?" Well, we've learned that you should always, call someone. Potentially, we've been telling people for years now, if you get an email, just call them to check, right? And it's really important here is the differentiation between you call them and they call you. Because they could call you and pretend that the phone number you see on your phone is their phone number, just like they are emailing you and pretending the email address is that person. So I went and did a bit of digging, and I did a bit of digging after a specific thing that happened to me, but I'll tell you that in 5 minutes. So I went and did a bit of digging and go, okay, so in email, we can actually put some records in place on our domain to prevent that from happening. How do we do that on our phone number? And the thing is there is nothing in Australia yet that's stopping people from being able to do that. They have something in the States, and that's what I wrote about.
Terrifying, isn't it? That
it's terrifying.
Essentially spoof, mask the phone number.
So I could be calling you, and it literally could be my bot. And I was chatting to someone on our website the other day, and they said, "Fabi, is that really you?" And what would I say? Yes, my bots would say, yes, it's really me, right? But do we actually need to create a real password between people to unlock? Yeah, a safe word. So anyway, think about it. What would you do if I called you and I was someone, on a board of a tourism organization, to give you an example, and told you to pay this invoice as per my email? You'd be like, "Oh, that's double authentication of security. I got an email and I got a phone call from Fabi." Well, what do you do if someone calls you and it sounds a little bit fishy or out of the ordinary?
Mm-hmm.
You do what you did with the tax office. You say, hang on, do you mind? Because when the tax office calls you, it's actually written, no number. So that's kind of a
Yes.
sign. But what I'm saying here is, no, it could be my number. So what do? You call them back, but you don't ask them for their number. People make that mistake. Or you don't, or they'll tell you, go and check my website address, blah, blah, blah. No, you go to Google, right? And you Google the main phone number for that business, the one that is in the Google business profile, and you ask to speak to that person, even though you might see their number.
Fab, why do you not rely on the number on their website?
Well, because they could have spoofed a website. They could have changed something depending on people's security levels on their website. So you all know how hard it is to get something improved in Google Business Profile these days, and how they need that video verification that it's used. So go to an official phone number, and I would trust Google Business Listing over your people's own website these days, especially if it's a small business or not a government entity that might not have to have all the right security in place. It's scary, but that doesn't exist.
The other thing is, we've got to rely on the approved, we've got to implement dual payment authorization within businesses, and we've got to rely on those manual processes as well. And having a trusted partner in that is so important, and their phone number. So hanging up, ringing them, and that's basically how it was captured in that client example, is they actually had an exchange between the two people going, no, that wasn't me.
The other thing to mention, Liz, that's really important is scammers. Obviously, in the old days, pre-AI, it would have taken a long time to find all that information. But now you can write a script. It's very easy. People can find everything about me. If I have dogs or cats, what I prefer, the tone of voice, how I write things. My voice is going to sound not robotic, because gone are the days where AI sounds robotic. I don't know if you've tried the advanced mode on ChatGPT. It doesn't sound robotic at all. But it's going to actually sound like me. My personality is going to be the same. You might be asking me how my cat is going, and I might be answering you with the right information, because they've found information about me, my cat's online. So it's not just the voice that you've got to worry about, it's the story and their personality.
That's
so
true.
To be on the safe side, hang up, call them back.
And what was your recent experience?
So it was a bit of a mix of AI and normal. So I got an email in my personal inbox that didn't catch the spam filter, didn't catch it. So that was actually really interesting. And it is an app. It is a cyber Bitcoin wallet that I use that sent it to me. And it was a bit like, if you send someone an email nowadays, you can actually track if they click on a link, right? So it was like, hey, blah, 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 click here for the latest update or something, right? It didn't say click here to log in, because that would have given me warning bells. And I clicked, and then I saw where it went, and I saw like it went to a dodgy URL. That wasn't really the bank name. So I'm like, okay, something's going to happen, right? I'd figure that one out. Nothing happened. It wasn't an email, but 2 weeks ago on a Sunday, which is very interesting, I remember I wasn't actually at home, I got a phone call saying, hey, it's such and such, blah, 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 from such and such online wallet. We just wanted to check something that's happened to your account. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And when I get dodgy phone calls, even though it's on my mobile, I'll pretend I'm my PA. So I said, I'm sorry, Fabian isn't available. Can I take a message? And they were very arrogant and very stern. And they told me, no, we recognize it's you, Fabian. We have your voice file on file, your voice on file, like how the big banks get you to actually confirm it is you with your voice. Like, how scary is this? And to me, obviously, that then just started. For 1 second, I thought, as if you do. But then I started thinking about my mother and going, oh my goodness. She would go, oh yes, of course. my voice is on file with the bank. It must be the bank, right?
Yes.
So I kept going with the conversation, and just, okay, yeah, no, she's not there. Oh, yes, she is. And I ended up hanging up after 1 minute of talking to them. And I knew in my mind that was from me clicking that email, right? But 2 months after, I realized I must have been talking to a bot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it had a British accent, which I thought was odd in a way, because I was in Australia and I think it's an American tool. But yeah, I thought I must have been talking to a bot. So could have been a bot, but what triggered it was the fact that I clicked somewhere on an email that they must have had all the security in place, and plus, because it actually landed in my inbox, in my Gmail, and I almost got caught because they used something I'm really familiar with, which is voice identity in Australian banks.
Yes, yes. So this, we're experiencing this. I'm sure our listeners can contribute, and I'd love to hear from them with some of their stories, because we have to keep educating the industry, our communities about this, and to be super vigilant, to be able to respond by hanging up, bringing back the company if you really
don't be scared to hang up. That's the thing.
Yes,
and
yeah.
At the time that you're on the phone, it might sound a little bit rude to you to hang up because they are using all the right scripts. And obviously, if it's AI, it's automatically based on what you answer. It's automatically creating the next logical question. And remember, it might know about you, your kids, what you're doing, even where you are presently, because you might have shared that information somehow publicly. So you'll be feeling like, I know I should hang up, but maybe it's not right. So if you've got that inkling, just hang up.
That's right. If there's anything stirring for you, hang up. It can't be that great an opportunity. We might ask people if you can share with us in the comments some experiences. That would be fantastic to know about that. And has anyone had any calls, like proactive calls, cold calls to you that you believe could be a bot? I had one just a few weeks ago. Let me set the scene for you. His voice was the voice of a tall, dark, handsome Australian male, probably in his early 30s. That's exactly the picture that came to mind when he started to speak with me. He had the most beautiful flowing voice. And in fact, the flow was so perfect that that's what started, my subconscious started to go, what? Okay, is there something not quite right? And there were some interesting pauses after I spoke that sounded, there was some kind of automation happening. It was after I spoke that there was a little pause. So it's like almost like a chatbot waiting to, like, digesting and then knowing how to respond. So by the time I tweaked that this is, and there was nothing wrong with the offer as far as I know, but it was an example of what's to come in terms of cold calls coming from bots. How the call ended was I gave some information that the bot couldn't deal with. I kept the conversation going, and I said something like, I said, the only reason I picked up this call, even though I didn't recognize the phone number, is that I was expecting, maybe some calls from some clients. And before I could finish that phrase, they hung up on me. So it was a very interesting conversation, which I've never experienced that kind of pausing before, or where they hung up. It's like the bot couldn't deal with what I said back to it. But I let it go because I thought this is so interesting to see how this is going to go. But yes, that beautiful male voice, absolutely nailed for the Australian target market of the woman that I represented, that target market. Yeah, so
And like everything, I guess that would have been, for the business, having a bot cold calling, that would be cost savings. So that's going to go ahead. It exists already. So don't think that all the phone calls that you're going to get, just like all the emails that you're going to get, are going to be scammers. But I think in Australia, based on what I read, the authentication connected to your phone number, actually, our telco networks don't support it yet. It's called Stir/Shaken. Funny name, isn't it? Like a good martini.
stir shaken.
Stir/Shaken, which corresponds, I guess, to the same records that you'd be adding to your domain name, is not supported by the telcos. So we've got to be so vigilant. And if we already almost get caught by emails, imagine if someone that knows you well, and as we're saying, they'll scan your website. They'll understand the relationships. It's all about SEO, AI optimization. We're all working really hard on our About Us page to make sure everything's connected well so AI can understand who we are. Well, guess who's using that as well? So just talk with your team as well. If you're listening to this podcast, maybe bring it up in your next staff meeting to bring that awareness to voice.
Absolutely. So just to recap before we close out, Fab, in the notes with this podcast, you'll provide a link to a blog post with more information about the email spoofing and the protection steps that you can take, as well as the link to the test that you can run to check whether you have the identification or protection tools like DMARC in place, and then to be super vigilant. If you're getting calls or emails that are requesting money particularly, or disclosure
or
of
details,
information, hang up, finish that conversation, you go look up the phone number yourself, use the Google Business Profile phone number and ring them to verify.
And it might be, they'll get very clever. It might be 3 steps away. It might just be a normal conversation that you have about something, and then they're gathering that information over 3 emails. So if something sounds fishy, that hasn't changed, right, Liz? If you're not quite sure about something and sounds too good to be true or sounds fishy, be super vigilant.
Correct. I think that's it, Fab.
All right. See you next time.
And happy, secure AI work, please, everybody.
Bye, Liz.
Bye.